Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pisillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear friends, let us go into the breach. So I'm excited today. All right, I'm going to tell you why. And I only wish that this happened, but I think people might be listening to the front line with Joe and Joe in places we might not see or hear about. So you remember last week we talked about Josh Hawley, Senator Josh Hawley, and he put the screws to Michael Bogren, right? Okay, so it was, Michael Bogren was up, so people know the circuit that is oversees the area of East Lansing, Michigan. That circuit court, Michael Bogren was put up by Donald Trump after a deal with Debbie Stabenow, okay? And this guy was getting rubber stamped. He was basically getting rubber stamped. He was going to sail through the Senate Judiciary confirmation process, and he was going to be sitting on that bench. Josh Hawley stepped up, and if you remember from last week, he questioned him about his anti-Catholic statements that he made in a case where he compared this Catholic family's business. It's they own an apple orchard where they host weddings there, and they do not host gay weddings, okay, because of their religious belief, because of their Catholic faith. And he compared that to the Ku Klux Klan. Okay, compare that to the Klan, and he compared that to the teachings of radical imams. Okay, and Hawley called him out, and this guy was very honest. He was very honest, Joe, about his position. He says, yes, legally there's no distinction. Hawley put the screws to him. Michael Bogren called the White House and withdrew his nomination for consideration for that judgeship. This is what I mean by victory. Of course, we hope they were listening to the front line with Joe and Joe. But outside of that, what it does show you is that by speaking up and not just going with the flow and not just letting people do what they want to do because it's not going to rock the boat. Josh Hawley rocked the boat, and an anti-Catholic, anti-Christian bigot is now not going to sit on that circuit court. And we love it.
Also, it's important to note that this was a conservative nomination, and Josh Hawley is a Republican.
That's right.
And he criticized his own. And that we need to see more of that.
That's right.
Both sides of the aisle.
That was one of the biggest things, is that conservatives blasted Josh Hawley as much as liberals did, maybe even more, because they wanted this guy on the court. Because sometimes conservatives have an agenda also, and they're willing to overlook certain things. Well, Hawley was having none of that. You cannot display that sort of bigotry on the court and then expect, especially now, everything you write, whether it's as a lawyer, a brief in front of a court, anything that's in the public records, it's going to be scrutinized. And you know what? This guy Bogren, comparing guys like us because of our views on marriage to the Ku Klux Klan, I thought was disgusting. We're used to it. We talk about it. That's one of the reasons why we're doing the front line with Joe and Joe. Okay, we talk about it, but it's so encouraging that somebody actually stepped up and made their voice known. Okay, and no, did not just go with what was going to be the easiest thing to do, which was just let this guy go on the court, because it shows you too. Even Trump can be wrong. Nobody here is in the tank for Donald Trump. Okay, he was wrong for putting this guy up. He was wrong for making a deal with Debbie Stabenow, and now Bogren's name is out of the picture, and Joe and Joe are very happy
and
about that.
Also, just to note, this is not a conservative talk radio show. We are about right. The right, it's not the left versus the right. It's basically the right versus the wrong.
That's right.
And that's what we talk about.
Right.
The truth with a capital T. That's what the show's about. That's what we try to bring up.
That's right. And we got, and you know what it is? Not letting, because this show is, what we're going to talk about tonight in a couple different topics. We're going to talk a little bit about the bullying that goes on both in society, in the culture. Okay, this was an example where Josh Hawley did not succumb to the bullying, the pressure, okay, that was probably brought to bear on him to kind of let this thing go a little bit, and he stood up. This show is about bullying and standing up, even if you're the only person doing so, or maybe the only two people doing so. Speak the truth. Speak the truth. You will get the better of the bullies. So what's the first example of
bully number one? Bully segment number one. Okay, Oberlin College pays $11 million bucks to a bakery owner who basically smeared students, saying basically these students, they were black students, and they got caught stealing. And basically what happened was the administrators basically encouraged the students to protest the bakery. And they also said some very bad things about these particular owners, and they were actually found guilty of, they actually did steal. They were stealing.
Right, but then, but then, correct me if I'm wrong. They called these bakery owners racists.
Well, I'll give you the quote. What do we got here? I think I have. After a year, this is from Oberlin College. After a year, I hope we rain fire and brimstone on the store.
Fire and brimstone, because they wanted the law to prosecute these 3 kids for shoplifting in the store.
And by the way, all 3 of them pleaded guilty to shoplifting and had to pay restitution. They were stealing.
Right.
And this is the interesting thing. I mean, here we go. We have high-profile administrators encouraging libel. I've said this time and time again. These are people who are caught up in hate. They're so full of hatred regarding Donald Trump, regarding this administration. These are intelligent people. They are not seeing things clearly. Listen, it works both ways. If you're a racist and you happen to be white and you happen to be persecuting a person who is Asian, Jewish, Muslim, whatever,
yeah.
You know something? You should be called to the mat.
Mm-hmm.
But in this particular case, these people did not do anything wrong.
Sure.
All they were doing is trying to make a living. Somebody stole something. Those somebodies happened to be black,
right.
And the administration automatically assumed that because they were black and because they were white, that they were picking on them.
Right. There was no race involved here.
Nothing.
There was no
There was
racial element. It's these kids stole. The owner of the business says, I'm pressing charges because they stole from me. Race does not enter into it. This whole thing is precipitated, by the action of these kids. Oberlin, now getting to the bully part. Oberlin College, okay, tried to smear these people, as Joe said, as racist. The kids did it, right? And I think their attorneys did it too. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken about that. But then the administration comes out and basically calls these people racist. So now if you're white, and you don't want things stolen from you, and somebody tries to steal something from you and they happen to be black, you're a racist if you want to press charges. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well, that's what they.
Now that's not bullying?
Well, here's the thing. The term racist, and again, I'm married to a black woman. I mean, I am fully aware that there is racism in America. I'm not like naive. That is a very strong word. And if you're going to call someone a racist, you better be really certain of your evidence. And it's more than just your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
You have to prove something. And you can't just, I feel this person's a racist, or I think this person's a racist. No. You show. That's a strong word. You're calling somebody something that is horrible.
That's right.
And if you do, you better show it. And these guys assumed. This is actually a very prestigious school.
Yeah.
It's a very, very prestigious school. And these are very smart people. They just assumed that this bakery was basically, picking on these kids who happen to be black.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what? They stole.
Right.
And guess what? They broke the law and they have to pay.
Right, because if I walked in there or you walked in there, okay, and we stole, all right, and the owner was black, okay, it doesn't really matter. What matters is I tried to steal or did steal, whatever. I got caught. And guess what? I'm going to get punished for it. The guy, because he's black, he's not prosecuting me or pressing charges because we're white. It's because I stole from him. Who wants to have anything stolen from them?
No.
And the bullying comes in, and this is why this is such a hopeful thing, Joe. This is such a hopeful thing. Oberlin's got to pay $11 million to these bakery owners. And I heard that it may be more than that. It may actually, at the end of the day, once it all goes through the system, it might actually be more than that. And why? Why do they have to pay these damages? And this is why I say it's hopeful. People are starting to stand up to the bullies. And these are the cultural Marxists. These are your politically correct crowd, the ones who want to monitor everybody's speech, because if you believe in things that they disagree with, of course, you're a hater. Oh, and let's remember, Hillary called us deplorable, okay? Oberlin's got to pay $11 million. You want some? I hope they get hosed. I heard the figure could go up to as much as $33 million when it's all said and done. This is what has to start happening. This is what has to start happening in this country, that when something like this goes to the courts, like Joe said, you could accuse somebody of something, But you better be able to back it up. You better have evidence. If you're going to call somebody a racist, let's segue just from there to another case, but along the same lines, where this one I'm really gonna, if me, fat 51 years old, could potentially do cartwheels, I will do cartwheels down the street.
Covington.
Covington. The Covington kids, because that case is going to be against Jeff Zucker and CNN and NBC, and there's two $250 million lawsuits. Why? For the same thing. They assumed that kid, Nick, I forgot his last name, that he is a racist, that him and his friends were making fun of this American Indian. They plastered it all over the place. They didn't have all the information. And I told you this before in one of our past shows, okay? Lynn Wood, who was the attorney for, why am I not remembering his name? The kid, Nick, who was being libeled, okay, who was at that whole thing. He is a savage. Lynn Wood is a savage. Lynn Wood is going to get that $250 million.
Good.
You know why? Why would he have to sell? If Jeff Zucker goes to him and says, well, you know what, behind closed doors, we made a mistake. You know the only way, if I was Lynn Wood, I'd let them get away from the settlement? You are going to come out with a public apology. You will broadcast it for a full 24 hours on your station. And you will apologize to this young man and his family and the school for everything that you said about him. And then we might settle for $150 million. Okay, we'll let you off for the other $100 million. But it shows you about standing up to the bullies, JoJo. It is possible to stand up to the bullies. It is possible to say what we always say. No, you're not going to call me names. You're not going to call Joe and Joe racist. You can't do that. Our wives are black. I don't care what you say. Our wives are black. Nothing you could do about it. You can't call us anti-Semitic. You can't call us homophobic. You can't call us any other. We're just saying the truth. That's it. And in this particular case, the truth won out. When Oberlin's got to fork over $11 million, that's a beautiful thing. And look at some of this stuff that they say, rain, fire, and brimstone down on the store from the administrators.
Just a brief. You're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. I just want to give a shout out to Aldo. Aldo, you notice Guayabera right here, baby. Guayabera. Little Cubano action going on. How to sport it from my Cuban brothers. What's it called? But getting back to this little subject. I love when you take people to the mat and make them pay like this, because this is the only thing. I say this constantly. Sadly, there's no sense of shame in America anymore. Years ago, somebody does something, you say you're sorry. It doesn't compute in people's heads. What you have to do is make them pay because their God is money. Mm-hmm. And this is how you resolve it. Like if I was a cop, I'm not going to get into an argument with you. You want to call me names, you want to spit on me, you want to do anything. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to keep writing you tickets. Mm-hmm. Here's a $1,500 ticket. Here's a $2,500 ticket. Here's a $360 ticket. Spit on me again. Here's a $115 ticket. And I'm going to show up to court, right, and you're going to pay. Right. And this is how it registers. Mm-hmm. When people do the wrong thing, and this is anything, both sides of the aisle, you will respect both sides of the aisle. This was one I heard this week. We're not going to focus in on it. There was a pro-life march in Massachusetts at the State Department. Mm-hmm. A bunch of people threw urine on the protesters. They were arrested. You are going to pay. I'm not going to send you to jail. You're not a violent offender, but you're going to pay. Get out the checkbook. Right. Get out the checkbook. And here's my little piece on it. It goes both ways. You don't agree with me, I don't agree with you. We live in America. You have every right to protest, and I welcome it. I'll have a conversation with you. You start breaking the law, you're going to jail. You are going to jail. By the way, go to a pro-life march. See how that one goes. Peaceful. You got people praying. Right. No one's throwing urine. Right. Throwing urine at people. What, are you out of your mind? And pro-life people don't go into the middle of the march, the women's march, or whatever that nonsensical march is. Nobody, we said this before. We're in New Jersey. We're not gathering 1,000 Catholic men to go march through the middle of the gay pride parade
in New York City throwing feces and urine at people. Okay, we're not interested. Not interested in going to the Women's March with their pink pussy hats and all that nonsense. Okay, but get out of our face. And like you said, when either A, you do something like physically assault somebody, okay, and yes, throwing urine on somebody you're assaulting them.
You're going to jail.
You're going to go to jail.
And you're paying.
And if you commit the crime of libel, you're going to pay.
And that's it. And just let them bust out the paycheck.
Right.
I mean, not the paycheck, the checkbook.
The checkbook.
Sign the check over. You want to, and listen, I'll have the conversation. You could express your opinion. You want to march on Washington. You want to have your speeches in front of the House. I'm all for it. I'm open for the dialogue. You want to beat people up?
Not happening.
You want to touch people? You want to throw urine on people? You want to call people things that aren't justified or aren't backed up,
right.
Like in this particular situation?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Cough up the cash, my friend. And here's the deal. You better have that evidence because we're going to the mat. We're getting lawyers, real lawyers, and you're going to pay.
Well, see, that's
what happened here.
Right.
$11 million.
Right. So Oberlin pays for their libel and their atrocious attacks on these bakery owners. And the kids pled guilty. I mean, I don't think any. I mean, what do you do with 3 kids who shoplifted? Give them 30 days community service?
It's nothing.
That's not. I mean, it's punishment. And you should be punished if you shoplift. They're not going to do hard time in Attica, all right, or anything like that, and they shouldn't. But Oberlin paying anywhere between $11 and $33 million, I think is a beautiful thing, and it should put people on notice. You cannot, again, you can't just say what you want about somebody. If I call somebody a name, I don't want to say a name, but like if I describe somebody in a certain way, okay, I better be able to say what actions, all right? I have to substantiate that in some way. If I call Joe Biden a liar or a flip-flopper, well, I can substantiate why he's a flip-flopper. If you want to talk about NAFTA, the crime bill that he was all behind in the 1990s, you want to go with the Hyde Amendment. If I call him those things, it's because he flip-flopped.
But if you said that he cheated on his taxes,
that's a different note.
And he did not.
Right.
You should be held to a standard. And by the way, we talked about this on the show probably about a month ago. There's a tougher standard for people who are in public office when it comes to libel. Mm-hmm. And actually, Clarence Thomas had brought up conversations to lower that standard. And Trump has echoed it as well.
Right.
That you're not just free to throw around statements just like that. Like, We'll use Joe Biden as an example. If I'm picking say in Fox News, if I said he cheated on his taxes, say he didn't. Mm-hmm. I don't have a right to say that. I simply don't.
But remember why they libel people, okay? And this speaks to the heart of this, okay? Harry Reid was in an interview, and he said, you got up on the Senate floor, and you said that a source you were very close to, who had intimate knowledge of the situation, swore that Mitt Romney cheated on his taxes. That has never been shown, and in fact, it was shown that the opposite. He never cheated on his taxes. Now, this is what I'm getting to a point about what you're saying.
I saw that.
And Harry Reid says, well, he's not president, is he?
Right.
And then he puts this shit-eating grin on his face, and he's smiling. Now, Harry Reid libeled Mitt Romney, and like Joe just said, he admitted to it, and he's not going to be held responsible for that libel against Mitt Romney. You could love or hate Mitt Romney. Okay, that's not the question. It's what happens when somebody does that to you. You can't applaud that when it happens to other people, whether you agree with them politically or not. What about when it happens to you? Lowering that standard for members of the House and Senate and people in public service? Yes, you open your mouth, you libel somebody, and Harry Reid came right out and admitted it. He admitted it. He said, he's not president, is he?
Well, that's why they have to pay, because their God is their checkbook.
All right.
And frankly, that's where I have no quarter, and I'll be honest with you, I have very little mercy.
No.
You do that, cough it up. Cough it up.
That's it.
You
will be made to cough it up.
You got to pay. And we're not settling. We're not settling. If that was my kid in that Covington protest, I would have one condition with the lawyer. We are not signing anything at the end of this saying there's no fault.
No, right. You have to admit fault.
Or we're going to trial. We're going to trial.
And you know what will happen in this case?
Because my kid didn't do a damn thing.
That's right. You know what will happen in that case? The CNN and NBC, I forgot if it's NBC or the Washington Post. I know there's a second lawsuit for $250 million. they will cave, because if it goes to trial,
Well, the lawyers will tell them.
all you have to do is watch the videotape.
Well, the lawyers, believe me, they know. They'll say you got to pay. You're going to lose.
Right.
The lawyer. That's why you pay.
I would
lawyers.
rather, for once in my life, I would rather see one of these oligarchs, like a Jeff Zucker or any one of them. I'd love to see them have to really try to defend this, because they never want to be wrong. They're right about everything, okay? They think that they own the world because they sit on oodles and oodles of cash, okay? This is what we always talk about. The truth wins out. And Zucker, all right, and people like him, Jeff Zucker, are going to find out just how powerful the truth is. And if you want to know exactly how powerful the truth is, pick up the phone, Jeff Zucker, and call the administrators at Oberlin College and see what they think about telling the truth next time.
Well, there it is.
There it is.
Like I said, that's the type of thing we're talking about, standing up. Something's wrong, you stand up, and frankly, you got to hold people accountable. And that's what these guys did, and they're paying, and I applaud it.
That's right. So you're at the front line with Joe and Joe. We're in the breach. We're having these conversations. We're talking about a lot of bullying going on as far as media and universities and everything else. Joe Pasillo, joined as always by Joe Resinello. So let's go a little further into the breach, shall we, Joe?
Okay, second segment. We have the American Medical Association, the AMA.
Can I preface this with one thing? Another hopeful story.
Yeah,
I don't know what's happening in the world.
I think so, and I think it's interesting, actually, because it relates directly to New Jersey, where we
are.
Okay, basically they met recently in Chicago, and they discussed basically what's going on. There's 9 states currently in the United States that have legislation regarding assisted suicide, or they call it aid in dying.
Aid in dying, yeah.
It's New Jersey is one of those. It just was passed about a month ago. We talked about it on this show. So basically now you have the AMA. These are doctors, and they met in Chicago, and they voted on if they thought that this was a good thing or a bad thing. Overwhelmingly, they rejected it. The vote, because numbers are important, I always say that, but I'm going to give you the vote numbers. It was 392 to 162. This is the medical, medical professional.
The establishment.
Doctors.
This is the medical establishment.
And let me quote this, because I want to read this to you, and I think it's very telling. This is what they said. They said, physician-assisted suicide and euthanasia are fundamentally incompatible with the physician's role as healer, would be difficult or impossible to control, and would pose serious societal risks. This is the AMA. This isn't Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Lady Gaga. This is doctors. A large swath of them, and basically the gold seal of the American.
They are the standard
profession.
for the medical community. Just the American Medical Association. Let's be clear. This is not the Catholic Church saying this. This is the American
secular
Medical Association.
And here's the thing that I find interesting. Once again, and we kind of talked about this last week, it's politics versus science. We have 9 states that are for this. It's science. These are the scientists. These are the people that are in the trenches, in the emergency rooms, taking care of the old, taking care of the sick, taking care of everything, determining the ill to the child, to the cancer patient. And they're basically saying that this is a no-go. Yet 9 states are for this. And they think, or they sincerely believe, that this is being you're being compassionate. You're helping people.
Right.
You see, bottom line is this, and this is in the article which I read, and you could potentially have coercion here. Whether it's on the family side or the doctor side. It also could be a monetary conversion. And if one person is coerced into dying, that's what's called murder. Murder. You murdered that person.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was an economic way, well, we can't pay for this, so this is the best course, or it's the kid who wants to get money from his grandparents. That's what's called coercion.
Mm-hmm.
And if one person is coerced, you murder them.
That's right.
And that's why they say it's impossible to control. This is the doctors.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying this. Now, 9 states have this. One of the worst of the 9 is Oregon. They first passed this legislation in 1997. Recently, when I say recently, I think it was last month, this just shows you how this progresses. In 1997, they passed legislation for assisted suicide. Last month, they passed something in their House whereby you could give a person who wants to die, you know, what physician-assisted suicide or aid to dying, whatever you want to call it, a lethal injection. Isn't that what you do to a dog? Isn't that what you do to a criminal?
No, but you make a very good point. I mean, this is because this speaks to, thank God the American Medical Association is actually, you know, has some, I mean, I was shocked when I read this article that 392 to 162. I'm surprised it's even one though, okay? Because now you're talking about doctors whose self-image is that, let's face it, let's not give them all the credit in the world. You know, a lot of these guys believe themselves to be God, okay? They believe themselves to be infallible. But the one thing that doctors want to be known for is, like you said, as healers. They heal people. They use their expertise to make you better.
That's the oath you take,
that's
right?
an oath you take. And thank God that most of them take this seriously. It's very encouraging because I'll tell you something. The American Medical Association doesn't have the best track record on certain issues, and has shown them to be susceptible to political pressures, because there's a lot of political pressure for this. But where my whole point was, I wanted to just get a little broader, if I could. This is part and parcel of the culture of death. In other words, so this is where, and again, it's you know what it is? It's death in the name of freedom. That's the way I see it. In other words, to be free means that you either have the ability to kill anything in sight that you want to, or kill yourself if you want to, and enlist other people's help in doing so. Where the doctors in this case are saying, no, there's no aid. I'm not a doctor. I'm not gonna enable you to kill yourself.
No way.
Now look, let's call it the way it is. Okay, people have killed themselves from the beginning of time. Okay, suicide is a real and yes, very sad, tragic end to somebody's life. Okay, but at the end of the day, if you want to kill yourself, don't bring other people into it. Don't make it part of our culture. I hope you don't. I pray for you. Okay, we'll help you somehow, some way. All right, but don't bring other people into it, and let's not have it legislated that all of a sudden now I have a right to kill myself. And I also, by the way, if I have a right to that, all right. Now Ben Shapiro makes this point: if you have a right to something, that means the government could force somebody else to provide that for you because it's a right. Okay, it's not something that you're actually buying. It's not a good or a service. It's actually a right that you have. So can you force doctors to have to help people to kill themselves? See, this is how it ties into political power,
it also ties into economic, like insurance. Like what if, okay, for instance, we've used this example. You're 80 years old, you need a hip replacement. And the actuary on your insurance basically says you're probably only going to live 4 more years, and the operation costs $700,000.
Right.
I'm just making up numbers.
Right.
Costs a lot of money.
A lot of money.
So they may say, listen, I'm not doing that. The hospital isn't going to do that. What we're going to do is give you this pill. You're going to take it, I'm going to prescribe it, and you're going to die in that bed. And that's where the coercion, you're basically saying, or we could use another example. We could say you're a young couple and you have a child that has Down syndrome, and with the science, not the dogma, the science of a sonogram who looks into the woman's womb and sees that the child has Down syndrome, and basically it's going to require medical care. Let's just say it's going to be costly. The doctor may just say, or your insurance company may just say, we're not paying for it.
Right.
We're not paying for it. You're free to do whatever you want. So basically what they're saying is you're free to basically go bankrupt, to destroy your life, to destroy your future. You're free. That's what's called coercion.
Right.
And that's why I want nothing to do with my medical care and the state.
Well, let's touch on that. Let's touch on that. For all the people out there who may be listening to the Frontline with Joe and Joe, let's be clear, okay? Because the mainstream media is not going to ask Bernie Sanders these questions, or Elizabeth Warren, or anybody else who is proposing universal health care, okay? None of them. Who's making the decision as to whether or not my 80-year-old mother gets the surgery she needs or doesn't? Is it you? Because if it's you, I want no part of this, okay? I want no part of this whatsoever. Bernie Sanders came out and said, well, there'll be no more premiums and co-pays and everything else, but yes, your taxes will go up, but your taxes will go up to pay for the system. Okay, I get it. Let's say that's all true. So my taxes go up by $500 a month, let's say, on average, to pay for your universal health care. but who's making the decision? See, as it is right now, I overpay for insurance. We all overpay for insurance. There are systemic problems that need to be addressed, and not by the communists and the socialists either, all right? But be that as it may, that insurance premium should be lower. I pay my insurance premium, which means, and it's, like I said, paying quite a bit for me and my baby, all right? What that means is the decisions whether or not one of us needs health care are between us and the insurance company. Bernie Sanders doesn't have a say in it. Elizabeth Warren doesn't have a say in it. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez doesn't have a say in it. So people better get it through their head. What we need in this country is for the government to start getting out of the healthcare industry. We talked last week about Rick Scott. He's a healthcare professional CEO, all right? Start listening to some ideas where the government gets out and the premiums come down, because if given the choice between, let's say, the costs being equal, paying the tax to the government and let them running it, or having a lower premium and you paying it yourself, remember the question the mainstream media is not going to ask the Bernie Sanders of the world. Under your system where I pay the tax but I don't have to pay anything else, am I going to get the health care I need until the day I die?
Not when you say I die.
Right, not when you say I die. Or when do I get the health care I need as long as I'm paying those taxes till the day I die? And if the answer is, well, you know, no. You don't want it, Mr. and Mrs. Pennsylvanian, Michiganite, all you good people in Wisconsin, Ohio, all of us. This is the last thing you want. You're going to, what do you do? What do they do, Joe? They lead you down the primrose path. You won't have to pay the co-pays. You pay a little bit more in tax, but you just go to the doctor whenever you want. We know that this is a lie. Am I wrong?
Well, it's funny. I mean, talking about like universal health care, I work with a gentleman from Toronto, and I've also traveled a lot, so I kind of have an idea of how that works around the world. But this gentleman from Toronto, and I also go to Montreal every summer. Every summer I go to Montreal. Now, this is a country that has universal health care. There are commercials constantly that offer supplemental programs. So, and my buddy from Toronto, whom I work with, said, basically, this is what he said. You're taxed at 55% in the country.
Really?
The basic things are covered. So you break your arm.
Covered.
You're good. Anytime you need a specialist, you're in trouble. That's what he said. And that's why there are supplemental programs. Now, who gets them? People who make money.
Right.
So let's be real about the economics. You're not going to go to the heart specialist when you're a blue-collar guy like you can in this country. I have particularly, my father goes to a heart specialist. My father was a barber. I've said this a million times on the show. His doctor went to Stanford University. Stanford University. I think he went to Princeton. That's my father's cardiologist. We're talking Albert Einstein Medical, like out of Manhattan, the best. That's not for you.
Right.
Under that. So all I'm saying is this: if you're fine with that, then vote. But my point is, let's lay it out on the table.
But they're not.
Lay the cards on the table.
But they're not going to lay the cards. See, they're not going to go. That none of the people that we mentioned on the left that are proposing universal health care, they're not going to want to answer the tough questions. And that, to me, is the one question that concerns all Americans. Look, some Americans, they just don't care. Okay, let's call it the way it is. Those people that are so self-centered, they're whatever part of the political spectrum they fall on, they don't care. Their 80-year-old mother could get a heart transplant or not get a heart transplant, and they're not gonna care one bit. There's some cold people in this world, okay? And they'll say, you know what? And when I get to be 80, I don't want to worry about it then. I don't really care. Most of us say, no. See, my mother, using the example, we have to personalize this. My mother paid for private insurance for 22 years that she worked, okay? Excuse me, in a job that offered her health benefits. In her retirement, she has to pay something, but she still offered those same benefits. My mother has had arthritis for 30 years. She's got to go to the doctor fairly often, okay? And I would ask, again, she is 80. She'll be 80 in July, all right? Is Bernie Sanders going to approve every single thing my mother needs? And if he does not say emphatically yes, but he never could. This is a government program. They can't predict what's going to happen down the road. They don't know because they don't know how much money they're bringing in. They'll start rationing out everything. Guess who gets taken care of? You do. You might.
But the rich people will just pay for supplemental care. That's all it will be. And you will get
the rest of us will be screwed.
Well, that's just, and this is what they have to be. Let's be honest. Lay it out. Lay it out. I'll give you another story. Like in India, they have state medical care.
Mm-hmm.
The state runs the medical. You have to pay for your own nurse when you go to the hospital. If you're in,
I thought it was free. I thought it was free.
No, not the nurse. You have to pay out of your pocket.
Well, the nurse is part of the healthcare. I thought the nurse was free. The nurse should be free.
And if you don't, you will lie in your urine and feces in that hospital.
Sounds disgusting, but it's true.
Another story from India. I used to go there. I've been there 6 times. I've spent a considerable amount of time there. A poor person gets hit by a car, by a car, and it was near a wealthy hospital, one that would be provided by those type of supplemental programs, because there's a lot of very rich people in India. There's a lot of poor people, but there's a lot of rich people too. And they took him to that hospital. He was indigent. He was poor. They turned him away, and he died. They burned the hospital to the ground.
The Indian people.
The poor
people.
They burned the hospital to the ground. This is what we're talking about. You think that this levels the playing field?
Not at all.
No, it does not.
Not at all.
Nor does, by the way, free education.
No.
You know who goes to those schools? People who get 1300s on their SATs. Not people who get 1,000. Not people who got 950.
You're talking about the people who go to
right, who go to they say, oh, Oxford's 10,000 pounds. You test. You either test in or you don't go.
Doesn't matter. You're not going there.
Or you don't go. Regular people in this country get to go to school, like me.
Yeah,
I'm regular. I'm a regular person. But this is what they don't say.
No, they can't. They cannot say. Look, Rush Limbaugh has said it for years. If they said the truth about what they propose clearly, so that people could hear it, they would never be elected to public office. Never, ever be elected. I will give this current crop of leftists a little bit more credit than the leftists in the past who Rush Limbaugh was describing. These current ones do seem to be right in your face. I think that when we talked about Governor Northam down there in Virginia, Cuomo over here, when they talk about leaving babies on the table to die after they're born, who was it?
Alabama.
No, well, not Alabama. Illinois, okay? J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, just signed the most atrocious abortion bill in the history of the United States. They're a little bit more in your face. I would say they're a lot more in your face. They'll tell you flat out, no, we want the doctors to kill people. They'll say that flat out with a straight face. In other words, they'll tell you right to your face. I just wish the mainstream media would leave the camera on when they do that. And let the American people see what comes out of their mouth. See, I don't need the filter of the media. I can see what comes out of a person's mouth. I can hear what comes out of a person's mouth and judge what they're saying.
Do you think Michelle Obama is going to euthanize her mother?
No.
Do you think she's going to allow the state hospital in Washington, D.C. to euthanize her mother, who, by the way, lives with them? God bless them. They take care of their mother. Beautiful. Absolutely applauded. Absolutely applauded. But do you think that they're going to allow? No way.
No.
They're going to pay.
Right.
But what about you?
That's right.
What about
you?
you? And you see, this is where I say to myself sometimes, let's all be adults. Let's not be Republicans. Let's not be Democrats. Let's be adults. Let's think of the financials. Just like we all have to pay our bills, we're all adults. This isn't Candyland. This isn't heaven. Let's get the facts and let's weigh them and let's discuss them. This shouldn't be a sneaky little covert, because that's, by the way, what Obamacare was. People talk about if Trump takes away Obamacare, what does Obamacare provide?
What does it do for you? What did Obamacare do for anybody?
It doesn't provide anything.
Obamacare,
anything to anyone. And it's costly. It was a disaster.
Right.
All that was, Obamacare was a carrot to open the door that Hillary Clinton was supposed to close when she became president and pushed through universal health care. And it didn't work.
It didn't work.
And when they say that, I laugh. They say, he's going to take away Obamacare. Take away what?
What do you
You
really want Obamacare? Do you?
Look into
my
it?
same plan, let me tell you something, just to talk about, again, for personal experience, my same plan now, okay, that I had before Obamacare cost me $400 a month. All right, this is just for a basic healthcare plan, a standard healthcare plan, normal deductibles, normal copays, and things like that. That same plan now costs me $700. Okay, that is a 75% increase. Thank you, President Obama, for this wonderful system that you put into place. I don't want it. We don't want it. Joe and Joe are telling all the people out in the Midwest who traditionally have voted Democrat, don't buy into their lies. What they want, and I don't care what anybody says, Obamacare is simply, amongst other things, okay, it is a power grab. It was and is a power grab. They want to take the power that you have to take care of your 82-year-old father, take care of my 80-year-old mother, and give that power to the state. That's not conspiracy theory. That's stone cold fact.
And also, I want to address a comment. It says, but no matter what a political candidate promises to do, if elected, there's no way to predict what the future will hold if the opposition will stand in the way. By the way, yes, that is true to some degree, but they're lying to you.
Right.
You see, this is not about standing in the way. They're withholding facts.
Right.
We're actually telling you the facts.
Right.
I'm telling you the facts about universal health care from someone from Canada and someone who goes there. They always tout that.
Right.
I'm telling you the facts about college, free college. All I'm saying is this. What I agree with is what you said. Yes, there are people who stand in the way on the right and on the left. And sometimes on both sides, it's wrong. What I'm saying is this. If you're buying a car, you should tell them all the facts. I want to know all the facts.
Right.
What's wrong with this car and what's good with the car? That's what they're not doing.
No, but
they're playing on your sentiment.
But remember what they did. I mean, when you talk about insulting the American people, didn't just start in 2016 when they realized Donald Trump actually had a chance to become president, and then their strategy was to insult all of us who were leaning towards voting for Donald Trump. First, because we dislike Hillary Clinton, but then because we started to say, well, I actually like some of the things he's saying. I actually like most of the things he's saying, and if he follows through on it, okay, I'll give him a shot. But they did the same thing then before Donald Trump, back when Obamacare was being debated. Actually, that was a slip of the tongue. It never was debated. And why? Because Nancy Pelosi insulted all of you by actually having the balls to say, if you want to know what's in the bill, you got to pass it. No, that's not the way America works. You have to look at it. You're my representative, or at least she's the representative from Illinois, from San Francisco. My representative, your representative, representatives go up there and they debate these things. We want to know what's in the bill before it's passed. That's the whole point.
Would you buy a car that way?
You never buy a car. You wouldn't buy anything that way.
Would you buy a house that
And by the
way?
way, I trust the real estate, the crooked real estate agent, the crooked used car salesman. I trust all those crooks more than I do crooked Nancy Pelosi.
And that's my point. We have to, like, a lot of these things that these people are selling, and they are doing just that. They are selling this. We just have to look at it rationally and so in a sober manner.
Right.
You know, I want to know all the facts. I want to know all the facts. How much does it cost? How much is it going to cost me? What does the service entail? What doesn't it entail? Where is the liability? Where is the cost benefit? For how long? These are adult conversations. This is not what's being provided.
But when you're dealing with children, which is what I'm sorry, I know the right does it too, Joe. I agree with you, okay? But the left takes it to a whole new level when it comes to acting like just out and out children who scream and cry and get shrill whenever they don't get their way. In other words, that they've shown that over and over again. And it goes back to what we said the theme of this particular show is about bullying. Again, there's different forms of bullying. Telling us all we need to see what we need to vote on the bill and pass it before we can see what's in it, that's bullying. To try to condescend to us by saying you don't need to see what's in the bill, just trust us, that's bullying. All of this, in other words, Obamacare itself was bullying 67% of the people before that vote was taken. The polls were taken. Right. Was that
Alfie Evans?
Well, see, that's the thing. If you want to see the ultimate form of bullying that pertains to this, Alfie Evans was killed by the British government in the name of universal health care.
No,
in the name of undebatable. This kid will die. Nobody is going to take this kid out of this hospital. He will die. We don't care what the Pope says. We don't care what Donald Trump says. We don't care what anybody says. We don't care about what his parents say. We don't care. This kid will die.
And by the way, people are all cool with that until it's your two.
That's right. Until it's your kid.
You see, this is the thing. This is where Americans, and it's a sad statement about Americans. Sadly, a lot of Americans just vote with their pocketbook or how it affects them. Sadly, a lot of people, that's how they roll. They're fine with that until it's them.
Right.
Recently in my area, where I grew up, you may not have heard this, there was an 8th grader in Rutherford, New Jersey, stabbed the principal at the graduation ceremony.
Are you serious?
Kid you not.
Did not hear about
This happened on Friday. People who might be listening who are from the Bergen County area. Anyway, Rutherford is an upper middle class town now. It's a $600,000 house, like to live in. And Rutherford's expensive. And everyone shocked, like, you know, on social media. Oh my God, I can't believe this happened here.
Right.
It happens here. Because it's not in Passaic. It's not in Garfield. It's not in Lodi.
It's not in Newark.
It's not in Newark. It's in Rutherford.
Mm-hmm.
And now they care.
Right.
Because their kids go to school with that kid who stabbed that man, and it's real. You see, that's where, like, that deal with Alfie Evans and what we're talking about here about, like, euthanizing people, where people could be coerced, and 9 states have this on the books, and the medical profession is saying no way, and yet the politicians are still pushing it.
Right.
This is where we have to step back and basically say, you know, it's not just them, it's you.
Right.
It's you.
Right. But doesn't this go to what, Joe, you and I always try to emphasize to people who would, you know, God willing, listen to us. Now, again, not because we know better than anybody else, because we don't. We might pay attention. We might have bigger mouths. Okay. People need to start leading principled lives. You need your life to be based on principle, particularly the moral law. Why? Because then what happens to your neighbor, okay, does affect you. You do concern yourself what happens to the kids or the principal in Newark or Hackensack or Trenton or Camden, and not just say, well, it's not happening in East Rutherford, so we don't have to worry about it. See, this is what it means to be principled, to live according to the moral law, because then what happens in your society in general, yes, you concern yourself with it. It bothers you when your society is crumbling, and you think that just because you have a bank book, that's going to save you when the whole thing crumbles. And that's your bank book will mean nothing.
And I laughed about those comments because it was like, that's what it was. It was like everyone was just like, I can't believe it.
People who are apathetic allow this to happen. That's the problem. If you live with an apathetic attitude, okay, well then what are you shocked when it comes into your neighborhood? You can be really shocked when the moral degradation that yes does take place more in the cities. Let's face it, okay, they're all crumbling physically. They're all have been crumbling for years morally. Okay, you expect it, but then you think it's not going to happen to you because apathy is not good either. Not caring about what your society looks like, what your culture. We're about to get into something that's disgusting. That's part of the culture. Not caring about this, it means that if we don't care about these things, then we're the problem.
And who's going to care if we don't?
Right. The government? Hollywood cares.
Wrong.
They're the ones doing the attacking. They're the ones trying to torpedo you and your family.
And by the way, these type of discussions, all of them are real. All of them take place in the news, none of which are covered in the mainstream media.
That's right.
All this stuff, by the way, that we talk about, nowhere is it to be found in the mainstream media.
No, and they're not going to. And you know what? I will say this, for 20 years, I've watched Fox News, okay? And I will say this, I watch Fox News because I do believe their tagline. I do. They are more fair and balanced, okay? They will show the liberal point of view, they'll show the conservative point of view, but they lean conservative because their hosts are conservative, okay? But as far as news is concerned, what you see during the day, from the morning until you get to the nighttime with the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the Hannitys of the world and Laura Ingraham, is a fair and balanced approach. But Fox News is no savior either. They allow, you know, sometimes they don't get into really in the news segments.
They're biased too.
They have a bias towards the right. But what I'm saying is they sometimes, not all the time, sometimes they're reluctant to ask really, really hard questions. This story we're about to cover, okay, which hopefully you didn't eat recently, because what some of these people are doing in our culture, okay, is disgusting. All right. Fox News isn't going to cover this.
Never.
They're not going to listen to it. Tucker Carlson might. He seems less ideological and he seems more common sense.
You know what it is though? people, and goes ties to the Oberlin situation, and this goes from the right to the left. They're blinded by hatred. People write people off, sadly, because they don't listen anymore. You know, just because, say, somebody like, say, Jake Tapper says something, he might say something that's right. We should listen. We have to listen to each other. This is what we've lost as a country. No one listens to one another anymore. You know, not everyone is a hater on both sides of the aisle. And if we talk, maybe we could find some common ground. And on some things we won't. And that's fine.
Well, on this, we will not find common ground.
No, but on certain things,
I think you're right.
I mean, I'm just talking about on a lot of things. There could be common ground, but it's not about that.
But you started this whole conversation talking about it's not right and left, it's right and wrong. Okay, and I agree with you. That to have a dialogue with somebody means that you have an open mind, okay, and that you are in fact listening. You're not just waiting to retort. You're actually listening to what the person says and then responding to them in truth and arriving at truth. Okay, that's traditional, what we would call debate. That's how debates take place. You state your opinion, your person argues, you have to back it up. That is not occurring in our culture. So let's segue into Teen Vogue, because this is an example where, again, bullying. Our children are now being told directly, now kids who are easily bullied, okay, are being told directly to how they could get around their parents, and their parents, yes, restrictions on their behavior, because all children are under the care of their parents up until 18 years old. And yes, the parents restrict behavior because that's what parents do. And Teen Vogue, see, you're not, the reason why I'm mentioning Teen Vogue in relation to what we were just saying, they're not going to listen to Joe and Joe. These editors, this lady Aronowitz, I think her name is, who's proposing this, okay, who wrote this article, she's not listening to you and your concerns as a parent. Okay, and we'll get into it. In other words, this is a woman with a megaphone. And when you have a megaphone and you're just going blah, 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 guess what? You drown out opposing voices. You're not going to dialogue. In this case, Joe, and I said, you're correct. We need to have more dialogue in this country. But in this case, this is where we need to go on the attack, in the arena of ideas, and attack these stupid ideas. Having said that,
well, let's
please,
segue
Joe,
into it again.
like I said, I hope if you ate something, you were able to keep it down.
You're with the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We're here every Sunday at 8 o'clock. This particular segment, it's our last segment of the evening. Teen Vogue recently published an article. It's an advice column. It's, as Joe said, Nona Willis Aronowitz is the basically she writes this advice column particularly. And Teen Vogue is a known magazine.
Yes,
I mean,
it
it's
is.
a big magazine. Well, anyway, the article explains to a pregnant 16-year-old how she can abort her baby despite her parents' pro-life choices. Let me give you a quote. Joe's going to have a stroke.
My stomach.
Let me just give you the quote from Aronowitz. She basically says, having access to abortion should be your right, regardless of your parents' beliefs. Now, this is a child. In the article, she basically notes how 36 states have what's called a judiciary bypass procedure, which are legal options for minors in this particular situation to bypass parent approval. She also
get an abortion.
She also gives links where if you can't afford it, certain groups which will fund it. Now, this is a minor. This is a minor. By the way, I'm going to give you a couple other gems that she's thrown out in the column in the past. In 2017, she wrote an article about thoughtful gifts to give to people who recently had abortion.
So you give gifts now when someone has abortion. You give gifts.
And she gave an anal sex tutorial in 2017. This is for Teen Vogue. Teen Vogue.
Now,
this is what the mainstream media. Now, no one's putting this in the news. No one is putting this in the news. This is disgusting.
And that's why I said Fox News wouldn't go near this either, because this gets into a very deep cultural part of the culture war in this country, because it involves not only the sexual revolution of the 1960s and how that's all played itself out in the last 50 years, it also involves homosexuality, it involves sodomy, it involves transgenderism. Fox News ain't touching that.
And you know something, this is where tolerance comes in, and this is where it ties into the first segment, where you have a protest of people who believe in they're pro-life. They're in Massachusetts at the state, I guess at the State Department, at the State House or whatever, and urine gets thrown at them. I'm not throwing urine at anybody.
No.
Frankly, I don't touch it.
I don't want anybody to throw urine on Miss Aronowitz.
No, but why do you have a right to do this to my kid? You don't. Stay in your lane. You see, this is where I can't, this is not tolerance. I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kid. I'll never do that, ever. You want your 16-year-old daughter to have an abortion? I feel sorry for her, and I feel sorry for you, but that's not my business. To be honest with you, I'll vote. That's my business, and I'll always vote for a pro-life politician. I can't manipulate you.
All right, well, while abortion is legal, unfortunately, you know, like you said a minute.
What can I do?
Well, what are you going to do? Say, well, I'm opposed to abortion. The person's going to say, yeah, I know, so what? And then
So
they're going to
why are you doing this to my kid?
Because in the culture war, Jojo, in the culture war, which is directly related to the culture war. Okay, they have taken off the gloves. They are the bully. They're the Goliath. You got to remember something. They're the Goliath of the modern times. They're big, and I'm not. This is not hyperbole. They're big. This is big media, big business, big advertising, big government. Okay, big education. Okay, that's what all this is. They are Goliath. They haven't found a way to crush us yet. Okay,
they will.
They'll try. Remember, we have God on our side.
Well,
all right. But they haven't found a way to do it, and we're fighting more and more to make sure that this forum, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the social media infrastructure stays free, because I would say, even though they are big organizations, they're not bigger than most of the people in this country. I think most of the people in this country would tend to or fully agree with the sentiments that Joe and I express on this show. In other words, that this Teen Vogue nonsense, okay, is an example of bullying. You're bullying parents, okay? Now, and here's the catch-22 that the parents are in. If they would argue, Teen Vogue, I'm sure Miss Aronowitz would argue, well, if you don't want your kid reading about this, don't let them read Teen Vogue. But then if I don't let my kid read Teen Vogue, they're going to call me a fascist. You know, you see how they try to win it all. But my point is, they're the Goliath, and we have to be David. In other words, we have to wield that sling and that rock. And it might not seem like a lot, but you want to know something?
That's what this show is.
Because it's getting the truth out there. This is outright atrocious, trying to advise young girls how to use the law, by the way. See, that's the sickening part about this. She's advising them how to legally go around their parents. Why is the law allowing this to happen? Why are there such loopholes in the law where this 14, 15, 16-year-old girl could go and have an abortion? How is it that people don't realize this is a usurpation of your parental right? You have the right as a parent to tell your kid what to do up until 18 years old. And after that, God willing, that kid is formed properly, but if not, the kid is free to leave. Up till that time, that kid's my kid, okay? And you do not have the right to tell my kid what they're going to learn about anal sex. We all know they're trying to do that in the grammar schools now, okay? But this whole thing, teaching about anal sex, teaching about how to bypass their parents so that they can go have an abortion at 16 years old. This is atrocious, Joe Russell.
Well, also, just to give you some other background on Teen Vogue, in 2017, because we were touching on some stuff from 2017 from, what's her name, Aronowitz, there were 63 positive abortion articles by the end of February in this magazine. So clearly, their market, their demographic is teenage girls, Teen Vogue, and clearly this is the message that they're promoting.
Right.
Abortion. Whether you're, and now they're talking about parents who don't agree with this, how to get around them.
Right.
I'll be truthful with you. This is where we are in the culture. And if you're a parent and you're not concerned, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, to be honest with you, your head's in the sand. Because this is where we are at. This is the front line.
Oh, yeah.
Every day. I think
know,
about this all the time. I look at my kids, they're under 5. I look at them, they're still innocent, and they're in my house, and they haven't been touched. They're not out. And I say to myself, in 20 years, what am I going to be looking at? What am I going to be looking at? I pray for them. I swear, this is where we are at in this country. And if you don't stand up to the, and put away the political nonsense, I'm talking, this is not politics. This is simple truth. This is common sense. I've said this. These are things my uneducated grandparents wouldn't even believe. They wouldn't even recognize this country.
Because it has nothing to do with right and wrong. It has everything. I mean, this is part of the moral degradation of this society. Again, it actually goes before that, but it really ramped up in the 1960s. This is just pornography. That's what. Why? Just because there's not, porn stars in it or something like that. But this is part and parcel of the whole pornographic culture that we live in. Okay, because it's all sexual liberation, contraception, abortion. All these different things. And it's like you said we're at the front line. Okay, what happens is we're at the front line. You know what they do? Because they're cowards, okay? Rather than fight at the front line, what they do is they keep you occupied to a degree at the front line while they send their agents out behind the front lines, and they go to where your kids are, and they kidnap them. That's what they basically do. They indoctrinate them, they kidnap them, and then when they bring them back to the front line, now it's your kid. Your kids are turning around and fighting against you. I think that's completely appropriate analogy, because what is this 16-year-old girl, what is she doing? She's trying to figure out a way, writing to this woman Aronowitz, how can I get around my parents so that I can go out and have an abortion? That's exactly what they do. They can't fight. Again, they will never fight JoJo.
She should be put in jail.
Well, no, she should. Okay, but they will never fight at the front line, because again, front line in the culture war is telling the truth about all these things, telling the truth. They can't, not to borrow a line from a few good men, they can't handle the truth. They can't, and more importantly, they don't know how to respond to the truth. We've talked about it a million times. They only respond with emotion. Everything is an emotional argument. That's what it's come to with abortion. They've lost every argument. They really don't care. They just want abortion on demand, and that's it. If they have the political will and the numbers to make that happen, that's all they care about. So that's why we really have to, more than ever, say, well, okay, it's not me. We're at the front line, and we're having these arguments. But the things, we really have to safeguard our families. We really have to look to our families. Yes, don't let them bully you into suggesting that if you take certain magazines or monitor your child's television programming, or they shouldn't even be on the internet, but even if they are, you have it completely regulated, okay, and have all the blocks up and everything else so your kids can't get to that stuff. Don't let them bully you, and by calling you an authoritarian parent who represses or oppresses your child. No. You're safeguarding your child. They are the wolves. They want to sink their teeth into your children and change their mind. It is your job, it's your duty and obligation to make sure that Teen Vogue, all you moms out there, Teen Vogue never gets read by your child, particularly your daughter. Never. And you know what happens when your daughter cries? Say, sorry, honey, I'll take you for ice cream. Go cry in your room until you're over.
But also, I think what you have to do, and goes not just for kids, but for us, we have to dare to be different. Don't follow the herd.
No.
Don't follow the herd. You have to be different. You have to be different. What's the poem? It's the road less traveled.
Road less traveled.
This is the truth. Like I forget, somebody was saying something. I was in an exchange on social media, and I said, I don't have a cell phone. I'm going to be 49 next month. I'm a vice president at an international bank. I do pretty well. I'm not rich, but I do pretty well. I don't have a cell phone. People are like, I can't believe it. When I tell people that, like at work, they can't believe it. They think I'm lying to them. And I don't care.
Right.
I drive a 2002 Toyota. I don't care.
See, that's what
you see, and this is the attitude you have to have.
Right.
And this is what I'm hoping to teach my kids is the same. Don't follow along. Because I got news for you. A lot of people are running right off the cliff. I've seen that in my own life.
But that's what that road leads to.
Right? I'm not saying a cell phone or having a fancy car. I'm not saying that, but I'm just talking about the crowd.
To make those things, going with the crowd or making those things primary in your life.
You have to be different.
Right.
You have to go against the crowd. And that takes courage.
Right.
And that takes virtue. And dare I say that takes God. It takes grace to do that. We are only human. We're of flesh and blood. No one's Superman. God gives us grace. We need the grace of God to do that. That's why in God we trust in this country.
Still?
Yes.
I heard they tried to take it off the
This
curfew.
is what
They got
makes
defeated.
America great. We need God in our society.
I want to chime in there 1 second because it was, I always make the point, my father passed away back in 2005, okay? And I always said this, like, I've never been in my life the type of person, well, my father's the best, or my grandmother made the best meatballs, or anything like that. My father was fully aware of his own flaws, and as his son, I'm fully aware of mine, but I was always fully aware of his. But I will say this, he was a good father. And the reason why I say that, because the things that he made primary, okay, for all his faults, the things that he made primary, in other words, those are the things that stuck with me. Those are the things that ultimately, let's say, as an adult, made me realize in many ways in my life I was doing something wrong. But when you talk about sacrifice and everything else, this speaks to what Joe was saying. My father would always say every time, now this speaks to teen vogue too, about saying no to your children, okay, that it's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a very good thing, okay? My friends had Ataris. I didn't get one. My friends had bikes. I didn't get one. Every time I went to my father, I said, Dad, I want an Atari. Go read a book. Then I'd say, Dad, I want a bike. Go read a book. Go play football with your brother. I bought you a football. Go play catch with your brother. My whole point is, but then as I got a little bit older, I said, why do you say no all the time? This is maybe when I was in my early teens. Why do you always say no? He says, you see all your friends? He goes, all their fathers drive Cadillacs. He says, I have a $1,000 Chevy in the driveway, 68 Chevy. This is 1980. So he's got a 12-year-old Chevy in the driveway. He goes, you're going to Seton Hall. Your brother's going to Seton Hall. Your sister, when she grows up, she's going to go to private school. He says, I don't care about Cadillacs. I don't care about Ataris. I don't care about bicycles. I don't care about any of it. You're going to learn how to use your mind. That's what you're going to do. And he said, and I'm going to pay for it. Me and your mother. And you know what that required? Again, from a flawed man. Sacrifice. My father never drove that Cadillac.
Well, we're all flawed.
Right, we're all flawed. But my point is, see how the littlest lesson stays with a child? If parents explain the no to their kids and say, look, this is why you're not getting this. In other words, whether it's teen vogue, whether it's getting a bicycle, my point is that taking control of your kids' lives, yes, taking control of your kids' lives is a good thing.
And that means that they're going to be different. And that means, like, you have to feel a no. There's certain things in life you don't learn from reading. You learn humility from being humiliated. You learn the word no when your father or mother say, I don't have the money. I can't give you that. And that hurts you when you're a little boy. But you learn that. This is how we have to raise our families. This is where this is garbage.
Right.
It's garbage.
It is.
And I don't care what my other parents think. I don't care what my kids' friends think, and neither should you.
That's right.
There's certain things on the television, they're not going on in my house. No way. Because that message is not coming through my television.
That's right.
To my kids.
That's right.
No way.
And if you want to do
and
it,
I don't care.
If you want to do it, it's your business. You want to raise your kids that way. But when your kids are not equipped for life, or when your kids stumble and fall, okay, you have to pick up the pieces for your child. If you didn't have the discipline or the fortitude to form them properly, okay, and to mold them so that they are equipped for life, then it's your fault. Don't blame everybody else, okay, because it'll all come down on you, and ultimately.
And you can do all the right things, and your kids still can go nuts. Because to be honest with you, there was a period of time I was off the rails, but it was the example with Joe, that example of my parents. By the way, shout out to all the dads. Happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Love it. To everybody. Godfathers, priests, all fathers, all the fathers. Love you. Love you all.
But I want to just say this, but that's why part of what we're doing, that's why we have to sometimes, because I know I've needed it in life, and hopefully we're in a position to try to get some truth out there to people. We need to let fathers and mothers know that when you're being bullied by the teen vogues of the world, and by the Hollywoods of the world, and the music industry.
Don't give them your money.
Number one, don't give them your money, but know that there are many, it's not just Joe and Joe, okay? There are many, many, many people out there who have your back, who are in the breach with you, helping you to raise your child. In other words, your kids are always going to cry. They're always going to say, why are you picking on me? Why don't you give me this and that? I did it, he did it, we all did it, okay? The bottom line is, our whole topic tonight was about bullying. In other words, and that's one of the reasons why in this breach that we're in, at this front line, we have to take this culture back. We have to have parents no longer, it used to be the parents that had good kids. In other words, parents who had daughters who were virgins, okay, up until the time they got married, all right? Those parents were esteemed. Wow, you really did something right. Now those parents, they look at those parents like they got three heads. What, your daughter hasn't had sex yet? What's wrong with you? Your daughter's not on birth control at 14 years old? What's wrong with you? You're not teaching your son how to put on a condom? What's wrong with you? That's my whole point is, in this culture war, everybody needs to know you're not charging the hill by yourself. We are all in this together, for our lives, for our children's lives, for our country. That's one of the reasons why we're here, to try to, if we think we could save this country, we can help to save this country by fighting this culture war, then let's have this war. Politics and everything else for
And it is a war.
Oh, of course. When they go after your 16-year-old daughter and try to tell her how to have an abortion, you're not at war with these people?
And it is a war. This is not like, someone breaks into your house. We're not having a conversation. This is a war. And this is where you have to be. The answer is, I'm in your face.
That's it.
And I'm saying no. And if you don't like it, tough crap. How's that?
That's right.
Tough crap. And that's what it's about.
When you get
and if people don't like you,
too bad.
Too bad.
We like you.
And that's it.
We can hang out and have a scotch if you want, okay? We can hang out and smoke a cigar if you want, have a barbecue. We like you. We would rather you be over our house than so many other people out there. So the bottom line is this. This was a good show because we have to point these things out. Now, especially with this Teen Vogue article. The other ones were more hopeful about the AMA not caving in. I think that was a very big thing. Oberlin College having to fork up $11 million. In other words, because these bakery owners didn't cave in. The Teen Vogue, though, that's not so hopeful. That's one of those where we're going to have to fight against these bullies like this Nona Aronowitz, okay, and her stupidity and her evil that she spreads. She's spreading out and out evil. This is where we need to all stand up. We're all in this together, and we
this
really
isn't
need to
Republican and Democratic nonsense quibble. This is what this show is about. Truth with a capital T.
That's right. Truth
with a capital T.
Never.
And that's what we're about, frankly. I'm not about right and left. I'm about right and wrong.
That's it. And we were on your side, and that's all it comes down to. So we'll be here Sunday nights, 8 o'clock. We have a YouTube channel now where we're posting the videos from here over to YouTube. So people could go on YouTube and look at our videos there. It's the same thing, the front line with Joe and Joe. So every Monday I will be putting the video from Facebook Live. It'll be on our page here, and we're also going to share it on YouTube. So if you have friends who are not on Facebook, who are on YouTube, you can share the link with them, because we're going to continue to have this conversation, okay? Yeah, I told Joe, I said I could do this. It's one thing, I can't play football anymore. After a certain amount of time, I won't be able to work anymore, okay? There will be a lot of things I won't be able to do, but if we have our mouths, we could do this until the day we die. And speaking the truth is something that we all need to do until the day we die.
And you have to have courage to do it. You can't be afraid to be hated. You have to choose sides. And when you choose sides, there will be people who don't like you. But that's okay. Because at least when you die, people knew where you stood. And you were clear. And that is very important. People who don't choose a side and get nothing done. You cannot be afraid to choose a side. And I have made my choice.
So have I. So we're going to be continuing that. We will continue to have this conversation all the time, because our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation, where's it going on, Joe?
It's going on everywhere.
Everywhere. So see you next week.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you.